Picture yourself sprawled on a creaky four-poster bed in a drafty Tudor palace, circa 1527, the air thick with the scent of beeswax candles, damp velvet, and the faint whiff of a courtier who's definitely overdone the rosewater. The fire's crackling, the quills scratching, and Henry VIII is pinning another gushy letter to in Boleyn, who's probably rolling her eyes somewhere in Hever Castle. These love letters, 17 surviving ones, stashed in the Vatican like juicy gossip locked in a vault, were the Tudor equivalent of a spicy text thread full of passion, promises, and a king trying way too hard to sound romantic. We're not here to judge their relationship goals, spoiler, they didn't end well, but to chuckle at their drama, wrapped in the pomp of the English court. So, fluff your imaginary pillow, ignore the distant clatter of a banquet, and let the rustle of parchment, the flicker of candlelight, and Henry's over-the-top devotion lull you into a cozy, amused snooze. We're diving into 10 facets of this epistolary soap opera, each a peek into the letter's words, context, and the Tudor world that made them possible. From the stuffy halls of Whitehall to the rose-scented gardens of Kent, we'll meander through the passion, politics, and occasional absurdity of Henry and Anne's correspondence, savoring the scent of ink, the clink of goblets, and the sheer audacity of a king writing poetry. These letters were a mix of love, power, and a dash of desperation. Henry was smitten and was strategic, and the court was eating it up like a reality show. Grab a mental goblet of wine, settle in, and let's giggle our way through this royal romance. Each letter a sleepy, snarky gem. Imagine lounging in a candlelit chamber in Greenwich Palace, 1526, the air heavy with the scent of wax, ale, and the faint rustle of a velvet curtain someone forgot to dust. Henry VIII, all beard and bluster, is hunched over a desk, quill in hand, scribbling his first love letter to in Boleyn, who's probably off practicing her French or dodging courtiers. The air's buzzing with the scratch of his pen, the clink of a goblet he's knocked over in his fervor, and the distant lute strumming some overly romantic tune. This letter, the opening act of their written saga, is Henry trying to be Romeo but coming off like a lovesick peacock. Let's dive into this royal word vomit, letting the flicker of candles, the whiff of ink, and Henry's try-hard charm make you chuckle as you drift towards sleep. Henry's first letter, dated vaguely to 1526, is a masterclass in overdoing it. He's all "my heart is yours," and "I'm tortured by your absence," which, let's be honest, probably means he missed her at the last court dance. The Vatican's got this parchment, its ink faded like Henry's hopes of being subtle, the air once thick with the scratch of his quill and the smell of ambition. He's writing to and, who's at Hever, probably thinking, "Mate, calm down, it's been a week." The letter's full of promises, jewels, titles, maybe a nice horse, because nothing says, "I love you," like a king flexing his treasury. Life around this letter was a whirlwind. Courtiers, sniffing drama like hounds, whispered about the king's new obsession, the air filled with the rustle of silk and the scent of gossip. And, no fool, played it cool, her replies, sadly lost, likely laced with just enough charm to keep him hooked without committing to his royal puppy eyes. Scribes copied drafts, the air heavy with the clink of inkwells and the hope of royal favor. The court was a stage, with Henry's letters as the script, the air tense with the weight of his ego and the murmur of bets on whether and would bite. The community ate it up, swapping theories by candlelight, probably snickering. He's writing poetry? Who does he think he is, Chaucer? The air was thick with wax fumes and the kind of laughter you get when a king goes full rom-com. The letter set the tone for their saga, a mix of passion and power, and as its ink fades, let's shift to Anne's world, where she juggled Henry's letters like a pro. Picture yourself in a rose-scented garden at Hever Castle, 1527, the air warm with the buzz of bees, the faint whiff of lavender, and the rustle of a silk gown and Boleyn's probably tired of wearing. She's reading another of Henry's letters, her eyebrow arched so high it's practically in France. The air's alive with the chirp of birds, the clink of a servant's tray, and the distant snort of a horse who's judging her life choices. And, the ultimate Tudor tease, is navigating Henry's wordy devotion like a chess master, and her lost replies were probably sassier than a court jester. Let's saunter into her world, letting the scent of roses, the flicker of a letter, and her sharp wit make you snicker as you sink towards slumber. Anne's role in this epistolary drama was less star-crossed lover and more I know what I'm doing, thanks. Henry's letters, piling up like overdue bills, gushed about eternal love, but Anne, per George Cavendish's accounts, wasn't swooning. She likely penned replies that said, "That's sweet, Your Majesty, but maybe chill," all while keeping him on the hook. The air at Hever was thick with the scratch of her quill, the scent of parchment, and the faint hope she could dodge being just another mistress. Her strategy? Keep Henry smitten, but make him work for it, like a king chasing a particularly tricky deer. Life around her was a tightrope walk. Servants, carrying her letters to couriers, probably whispered, "She's got him wrapped around her finger," the air filled with the rustle of linen and the scent of intrigue. The court, far off, buzzed with gossip, and wasn't noble enough, too French, too bold, the air tense with the clink of goblets and the murmur of scandal. Her family, smelling opportunity, pushed her to play nice, the air heavy with the weight of ambition and the hope of titles. Anne's days were spent dodging Henry's gifts. Another necklace? Really? The air warm with the scent of wax and the effort of staying one step ahead. The community loved the drama, courtiers snickering over wine, probably betting on how long she'd string him along. The air was thick with the scent of candles and the kind of laughter you get when a king's begging for attention. Anne's replies, though gone, were the spark that kept this saga burning. And as her garden fades, let's shift to the letter's journey from palace to post. Imagine standing in a muddy courtyard outside Whitehall, 1527, the air damp with the scent of wet straw, horse sweat, and the faint tang of a courier who's ridden too long without a bath. A royal messenger, looking like he's regretting every life choice, clutches one of Henry's love letters, ready to gallop to Anne. The air's buzzing with the clatter of hooves, the rustle of parchment, and the distant shout of a groom who's fed up with the stables. These letters, now chilling in the Vatican, were the Tudor equivalent of express delivery, but with more drama and worse roads. Let's trot along with this postal saga, letting the scent of leather, the flicker of a lantern, and the courier's grumbling make you chuckle as you drift towards sleep. Henry's letters didn't just magically appear at Hever. They took a bumpy ride through England's muddiest paths. Scribes, sweating over their quills, copied drafts in case Henry changed his mind mid-swoon, the air thick with the scratch of pens and the smell of ink. Couriers, paid in coin and complaints, dodged bandits and bad weather, probably muttering, "Why can't he just say it to her face?" The air was heavy with the creak of saddles and the hope they'd get a tip. Anne's replies, sent back the same way, were probably sealed with a smirk. Life around this postal relay was chaotic. Inns along the route buzzed with gossip, travelers whispering, "The king's riding what?" as they passed ale, the air filled with the clink of mugs and the scent of stale bread. At court, courtiers placed bets on delivery times, the air tense with the rustle of silk and the murmur of intrigue. The letters were a lifeline, each one a gamble. Would it get lost, intercepted, or worse, ignored? The air was warm with the scent of wax and the effort of keeping secrets. The community ate it up, servants snickering over the king's obsession, the air thick with candle fumes and the kind of laughter you get when a royal's playing postman. The letter's journey was a logistical nightmare, but they made it, and as the hoofbeats fade, let's shift to the court's reaction, where gossip was the real currency. Picture yourself in a candlelit hall at Hampton Court, 1527, the air heavy with the scent of roasted boar, wine, and the faint whiff of a courtier's overzealous perfume. The court's buzzing about Henry's latest letter to Anne, whispered about like it's the hottest scandal since someone spiked the ale. The air's alive with the clink of goblets, the rustle of velvet, and the snicker of a lady-in-waiting who's heard everything. These letters were the Tudor court's favorite soap opera, and everyone had an opinion. Let's dive into this gossip fest, letting the flicker of torches, the scent of spices, and the court's snarky chatter make you giggle as you sink towards slumber. The court, per Cavendish, was a hotbed of whispers about Henry's secret love. His letters, full of mushy promises, were no secret, servants blabbed, and soon everyone from dukes to scullions knew the king was smitten. The air was thick with the murmur of, "She's not even that noble," and the scent of intrigue. And, at Hever, was the talk of the town, her every move dissected like a particularly juicy play. Courtiers, sipping wine, probably muttered, "He's writing again? Get a hobby, Your Majesty." Life around this gossip was a performance. Ladies-in-waiting, fanning themselves dramatically, swapped theories. Wouldn't be queen or just another fling. The air heavy with the rustle of silk and the hope of scandal. Scribes, copying royal decrees, snuck peeks at the letters, the air tense with the scratch of quills and the fear of getting caught. Even Queen Catherine's camp got wind, their glares sharp, the air warm with the scent of wax and the weight of betrayal. The letters fueled bets, alliances, and some epic side-eye. The community thrived on the drama, courtiers laughing over banquet tables, the air thick with spice fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when a king's acting like a teenager. The gossip kept the court spinning, and as the hall quiets, let's shift to the letters language, where Henry tried to be a poet and mostly failed. Imagine sitting by a flickering fire in Whitehall, 1527, the air warm with the scent of tallow, ink, and the faint whiff of Henry's overdone cologne. The king's at his desk again, quill poised, trying to channel Petrarch but landing somewhere closer to a lovesick tavern bard. The air's buzzing with the scratch of his pen, the clink of an inkwell he's knocked over, and the distant lute playing something way more romantic than his words. These letters, preserved in the Vatican, are Henry's attempt at poetry, but let's just say he's no Shakespeare. Let's dive into this wordy mess, letting the flicker of candles, the scent of parchment, and Henry's clunky rhymes make you chuckle as you drift towards sleep. Henry's letters are a mix of grand promises and awkward flattery, like a teenager texting his crush at 2 a.m. He calls in his own darling and sweetheart, which sounds sweet until you realize he's also whining about her being cruel for not writing back faster. The air was once thick with the scratch of his quill and the smell of ambition, as he scribbled lines like, "My heart is yours forever." Sure, until wife number 3 mate. And, reading these, probably thought, nice try, but I'm not swooning yet. Life around this poetic disaster was hectic. Scribes, tasked with making his drafts legible, probably snickered, "This is royal poetry," as they worked, the air heavy with the clink of inkwells and the scent of ink. Courtiers, catching wind of his metaphors, swapped jokes about his burning heart, needing a bucket of water, the air tense with the rustle of silk and the hope of gossip. Anne's replies, though lost, were likely sharp, balancing charm with a "let's not get ahead of ourselves" vibe, the air warm with the effort of staying coy. The community loved the spectacle, whispering over wine about Henry's wordy devotion, the air thick with candle fumes and the kind of laughter you get when a king tries to rhyme love with dove. His language, clunky but earnest, kept the saga alive, and as the ink dries, let's shift to the politics behind the letters, where love was just part of the game. Picture yourself in a stuffy council chamber at Westminster, 1527, the air heavy with the scent of musty tapestries, wine, and the faint whiff of a nervous advisor's sweat. Henry's love letters, too, and aren't just mushy notes. They're political dynamite, shaking the court like a badly timed jester's joke. The air's buzzing with the rustle of parchment, the clink of goblets, and the murmur of counselors wondering if the king's lost his marbles. These letters, tied to his quest to ditch Catherine of Aragon, were as much about power as passion. Let's wade into this royal chess game, letting the flicker of torches, the scent of ink, and the advisor's panicked whispers make you snicker as you sink toward slumber. Henry's letters, per David Starkey, were a bold move in his campaign for an annulment. He's all "my heart's yours," but also "let's make you queen," which was less romantic and more "I need a son pronto." The air was thick with the scratch of quills and the smell of ambition, as he wrote to and while plotting to rewrite England's marriage laws. And, no pond, played along, her replies likely saying, "Love's great, but let's talk crowns," keeping Henry's hopes high and his advisors stressed. Life around this political soap opera was tense. Courtiers, dodging Henry's mood swings, whispered about the great matter, the air heavy with the rustle of velvet and the scent of fear. Clerics, clutching their rosaries, debated annulments, the air tense with the clink of beads and the hope of divine approval. Anne's family, smelling a dynasty, pushed her to keep Henry hooked, the air warm with the scent of wax and the weight of ambition. The letters were a gamble, each one a step toward a throne or a chopping block. The community thrived on the drama, counselors snickering over wine about Henry's lovesick scheming, the air thick with spice fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when a king's mixing love and law. The politics kept the court spinning, and as the chamber quiets, let's shift to the letters style, where Tudor flair met royal ego. Imagine lounging in a velvet-draped chamber at Richmond Palace, 1527, the air warm with the scent of beeswax, ink, and the faint tang of a courtier's overdone pomander. Henry's at it again, scribbling love letters to Anne, his parchment practically dripping with royal swagger. The air's buzzing with the scratch of his quill, the clink of a gold seal, and the distant strum of a lute trying to keep up with his ego. These letters, preserved like VIP relics in the Vatican, were written with all the flair of a king who thought he was God's gift to romance. Let's dive into this stylish mess, letting the flicker of candles, the scent of wax, and Henry's over-the-top flair make you chuckle as you drift toward sleep. Henry's letters were Tudor bling on paper, fancy seals, florid script, and enough, my darling, as to make a bard blush. And, reading these, probably thought, nice seal, but let's talk substance. Life around this stylish drama was a spectacle. Scribes, sweating over vellum, probably muttered, another heart metaphor? Really? As they worked, the air heavy with the clink of inkwells and the scent of ink. Courtiers, eyeing the gold seals, swapped jokes about Henry's royal penmanship, the air tense with the rustle of silk and the hope of gossip. Anne's replies, though lost, likely matched his flair with a sharp edge, the air warm with the effort of keeping up appearances. The community loved the show, whispering over banquets about the king's flashy letters, the air thick with wine fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when a king's trying to be suave. The style kept the saga sparkling, and as the parchment folds, let's shift to the risks they took, where love letters could land you in hot water. Picture yourself skulking in a shadowy corridor at Greenwich, 1527, the air damp with the scent of stone, tallow, and the faint whiff of a spy who's terrible at hiding. Henry's love letters to Anne aren't just sweet nothings. They're potential dynamite in a court where gossip could get you exiled or worse. The air's buzzing with the rustle of cloaks, the clink of a dropped dagger, and the murmur of a servant who's seen too much. These letters, now safely in the Vatican, were a risky move in a world of snooping courtiers. Let's sneak into this dangerous game, letting the flicker of torches, the scent of intrigue, and the spy's sneaky footsteps make you snicker as you sink toward slumber. Writing love letters was like playing Tudor roulette. Henry, per Starkey, risked his reputation by putting his heart on paper. Kings don't beg, but here he was, groveling. The air was thick with the scratch of his quill and the smell of fear, as each letter could be snatched by Catherine's allies or a nosy bishop. And, sending replies, played a riskier game. Her words could be twisted as treason if things went south, the air tense with the rustle of parchment and the hope nobody was eavesdropping. Life around this risky correspondence was tense. Couriers, dodging spies, probably muttered, "Why am I carrying this drama?" as they rode, the air heavy with the creak of saddles and the scent of mud. Courtiers, sniffing betrayal, whispered about the king's folly, the air warm with the clink of goblets and the weight of scandal. Anne's family, pushing her to keep writing, knew one wrong word could tank their dreams, the air thick with the scent of wax and ambition. The community thrived on the danger, servants snickering over ale about the king's risky pen, the air thick with tallow fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when a king's gambling his crown for love. The risks kept the saga spicy, and as the shadows fade, let's shift to the letter's impact, where words reshaped a kingdom. Picture yourself in a crowded hall at Westminster, 1528, the air heavy with the scent of roasted swan, wine, and the faint whiff of a bishop's panic. Henry's love letters to Anne aren't just romantic scribbles. They're shaking England like a badly tuned lute. The air's buzzing with the clink of goblets, the rustle of velvet, and the murmur of counselors wondering if the king's lost it. These letters, tied to the great matter, were rewriting history, one gushy line at a time. Let's dive into this royal upheaval, letting the flicker of torches, the scent of spices, and the court's frantic chatter make you chuckle as you drift towards sleep. The letters, per historians like Alison Weir, were ammo in Henry's quest to annul his marriage to Catherine. His promises to and queen, kids, the works, weren't just sweet talk. They were a blueprint for schism. The air was thick with the scratch of quills and the smell of ambition, as Henry's words pushed for a new church, a new wife, and a new heir. And, playing her part, kept him writing, her replies likely saying, "Love's great, but let's talk thrones." The air tense with the weight of power and the hope of a crown. Life around this upheaval was chaos. Clerics, clutching their mitres, debated papal authority, the air heavy with the clink of rosaries and the scent of fear. Courtiers, picking sides, whispered about Anne's rise, the air warm with the rustle of silk and the murmur of bets. The common folk, hearing rumors, probably muttered, "Another wife? Blimey." As they worked, the air thick with the scent of ale and the effort of staying out of it. The letters sparked a revolution, each one a step toward reform or ruin. The community loved the drama, snickering over banquets about Henry's lovesick rebellion, the air thick with wine fumes and the kind of laughter you get when a king's rewriting the rulebook. The impact was seismic, and as the hall quiets, let's shift to the letter's legacy, where love left a mark. Picture yourself in a quiet library in modern London, the air soft with the scent of old books, dust, and the faint whiff of a historian's coffee. The love letters of Henry and Anne, now tucked away in the Vatican, are more than Tudor gossip. They're a window into a romance that changed England forever. The air's humming with the rustle of pages, the click of a laptop, and the distant murmur of a scholar muttering, "This guy was extra." These letters, preserved like royal relics, are a legacy of passion and power. Let's wander into their afterlife, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of ink, and their enduring drama make you snicker as you sink toward slumber. The letters, per Weir, outlived Henry and Anne, their words a testament to a love that sparked a reformation. They're studied now for their insight into Tudor politics. But let's be real, they're also peak drama, with Henry's "My Heart's Yours" sounding like a soap opera script. The air was once thick with the scratch of quills and the smell of ambition, as they wrote a story that ended in thrones, schisms, and, well, a bit of beheading. Scholars, poring over them, probably chuckle, "He really thought this would end well?" Life around their legacy is quieter now. Historians, flipping through facsimiles, swap theories about and strategy, the air heavy with the rustle of pages and the scent of coffee. Museums display replicas, tourists whispering, "He wrote that." As they gawk, the air warm with the hum of curiosity. The letters shaped history. England broke with Rome and got a crown, briefly, and their words still spark debates, the air tense with the weight of what-ifs and the hope of understanding. The community, from Tudors to today, loves the saga, modern readers snickering over Henry's devotion like it's a viral tweet. The air's thick with book dust and the kind of laughter you get when history's this messy. The letter's legacy endures, and as the library fades, let's wrap up with a final reflection, tying this royal romance together with a smirk. As the hum of Tudor drama fades, the clink of goblets, the rustle of parchment, the scent of wax, and overdone rosewater, let your mind flop into the quiet like a courtier after a long banquet. We've wandered through Henry and Anne's love letters, from his poetic faceplants to her sassy sidesteps, each one a mix of passion, power, and pure Tudor chaos. Their world was a whirlwind of velvet, ambition, and gossip that could sink a ship, yet it was also a place where a king's pen could rewrite a kingdom. Picture yourself now, tucked into a soft bed, the air still and the madness of their time far away, their drama a distant chuckle. These letters, equal parts sweet and scheming, remind us that even royals could be gloriously, messily human. Let the details slip away, like a candle burning out in a drafty hall. The stuffy palaces, the rose-scented gardens, the taste of wine and intrigue, they fade into the background, leaving only the peace of this moment and a lingering smirk. You've journeyed through a world where love was a power play, its writer's earnest quills and sharp wits keeping its story alive. Now, it's time to rest, to let go of the royal ruckus and sink into calm. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and let the gentle absurdity of history lull you into sleep, safe in the silliness of now. If you think about it, the surviving love letters between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn are a curious mix of what we'd now call private messages, PR campaigns, and political strategy memos. They sit at a strange intersection, the personal and the public, the intimate and the diplomatic, a space that hasn't vanished in our own world. Instead, it's simply migrated onto different platforms. Instead of parchment, quills, and wax seals, we have encrypted apps, email, and the occasional ill-advised social media post. The stakes, however, can still be as high as they were in 1527. A personal message made public can spark scandal, topple careers, and alter the course of a public figure's life. The first and most obvious comparison lies in the fact that these letters were never truly private in the way we might imagine. Yes, they were addressed to and yes, they were likely sealed and sent by trusted couriers. But the Tudor court was a place where little stayed secret for long, and every messenger, scribe, or servant involved in their creation had the opportunity to read, gossip about, or strategically misplace them. That atmosphere mirrors our current reality in which private messages, whether emails between politicians, leaked celebrity texts, or corporate Slack logs, can suddenly appear in public view. The moment an exchange leaves the lips or fingertips of the sender, control over it is, at best, partial. Henry may have thought his words belonged to and, in reality, they were part of the wider currency of court politics. Likewise, a modern public figure might believe their direct messages are private, only to see them splashed across headlines after a hack, subpoena, or betrayal. Henry's letters also highlight another timeless truth. Public figures curate their romantic communication in a way ordinary people might not. His letters were not raw, unfiltered outpourings of emotion. They were carefully crafted, or at least consciously styled, to project a certain image. Even when the content was highly emotional, the phrasing had an intentional grandeur, as if he was performing romance. In modern terms, it's similar to when politicians release carefully written statements about their spouses on anniversaries, or when celebrities post public love notes on Instagram. There's genuine feeling, perhaps, but it's filtered through an awareness that others may see it, judge it, and interpret it in ways that matter for their reputation. Ann's likely responses, though none survive, invite a comparison to how people in high-stakes relationships today manage their side of the correspondence. Based on the political context, historians believe she was deliberate in how she replied. Never too eager, never dismissive, but just enough to keep Henry intrigued and committed. This is, in effect, the 16th century version of controlling the narrative, a skill modern public figures employ when managing relationships that the press or public are tracking. Whether it's a celebrity carefully curating joint interviews with a partner, or a CEO making limited public statements about their personal life, the strategy is the same. Offer enough to keep interest alive, but never so much that you lose leverage. There's also the way in which these letters became, over time, more than just an exchange between two people. They were transformed into political documents. Henry used them as proof of his intention to marry Anne, as part of his broader campaign to convince others, both in England and in Rome, that his current marriage to Catherine of Aragon was invalid. In modern politics, private communications are often repurposed to serve a larger agenda. Think of leaked memos used in court cases, text messages presented during congressional hearings, or emails submitted as evidence in corporate disputes. A message that might have begun as personal or emotional can, in a different context, be reframed as a crucial piece of a legal or political puzzle. The mechanics of delivery themselves offer an interesting parallel. Henry's letters traveled by horseback courier, vulnerable to theft, weather, or interception. Today, we send messages instantly, but they remain vulnerable to interception by hackers, unauthorized screenshots, or even accidental forwarding. While the technology has changed, the essential vulnerability that anything sent can fall into the wrong hands remains constant. The difference is speed. In Henry's world, interception might take days or weeks. In hours, a breach can go global in minutes. One of the most striking parallels is the way the court, and by extension, the country, became aware of and invested in this romance. Gossip about Henry's letters, his devotion to and their implications for the Queen and the kingdom was the Tudor equivalent of a 24-hour news cycle. Courtiers speculated, alliances shifted, and reputations were built or broken based on proximity to this unfolding drama. In our own time, celebrity relationships, political affairs, and high-profile romances are tracked in real time by media outlets, bloggers, and social media users. The difference is one of scale. In Henry's time, the audience was a few hundred influential courtiers and foreign diplomats. In ours, it's millions of strangers with smartphones. Yet the dynamics, the hunger for updates, the speculation, the emotional investment in strangers' relationships are strikingly similar. Henry's overly florid, sometimes awkward romantic language also invites comparison to modern-day performative romance online. His metaphors and declarations, grand promises of eternal devotion, expressions of suffering in her absence, read like someone trying to post the perfect anniversary tribute on Facebook or the most poetic Valentine's Day caption on Instagram. The intention is not just to please the recipient, but to create an image that others will admire. The modern equivalent might be a celebrity posting a love poem for their partner that doubles as brand building. In both cases, the line between genuine sentiment and public relations is blurred, and strategy, withholding too much physical or emotional commitment until she had a promise of marriage, also has echoes in modern relationship power dynamics. While few contemporary partners are angling for a literal crown, many people consciously or unconsciously calibrate how much they give in a relationship based on the level of security, commitment, or benefit they believe they will receive. In elite circles, whether in Hollywood, politics, or business, romantic relationships are often entwined with considerations of status, opportunity, and mutual advantage. Anne's careful navigation of Henry's affections is not unlike the modern hard-to-get dynamic, though with far more at stake than a weekend getaway or a red carpet debut. The risks of written communication loom large in both worlds. In Henry's time, a compromising letter could be weaponized by enemies at court. In ours, compromising texts or emails can be leaked to the press, released in court filings, or spread virally. This similarity underscores the enduring principle that those in positions of influence must assume their private words could one day become public. Many modern public figures are trained to write every email and text as if it could be read aloud in court or printed on the front page, a mindset Henry would have done well to adopt. The political stakes also resonate. Henry's letters were not just about seduction. They were part of a campaign to end his marriage to Catherine of Aragon and marry Anne. This had seismic consequences. It led to England's break with the Catholic Church, the establishment of the Church of England, and a cascade of political and religious reforms. While few modern relationships have such nation-altering consequences, personal relationships still influence politics and governance today. Romantic entanglements have been known to affect political appointments, diplomatic negotiations, and even election outcomes. A leader's choice of partner can signal ideological alignment, cultural values, or political priorities, just as Henry's pursuit of and signaled a shift in England's religious and political future. We can also consider how these letters functioned as a sort of content archive for later generations. Preserved in the Vatican, they became a primary source for historians and biographers. Similarly, in the digital age, the written record we leave, emails, messages, social media posts, becomes the material from which future narratives are constructed. Today's journalists and historians sift through digital archives to reconstruct events. Tomorrow's may well be parsing through preserved chats and cloud backups to tell the story of our time. The permanence of the written word, whether on vellum or in a data server, is a constant. The public's fascination with these letters also mirrors our own fascination with behind-the-scenes glimpses into famous lives. Just as 16th-century courtiers would have been eager to hear the latest rumor about Henry and Anne, modern audiences consume documentaries, memoirs, and leaked communications to feel closer to public figures. This desire to know the real person behind the image is timeless, though in Henry's case, the real him may have been exactly what he projected: grandiose, impulsive, and utterly convinced of his own romantic prowess. Even the eventual fallout of the relationship has modern echoes. Henry's passion cooled, his priorities shifted, and his political needs ultimately outweighed his romantic devotion, and, once elevated, fell dramatically from favor, ending in her execution. In contemporary terms, this is reminiscent of high-profile breakups in which former partners become political liabilities, PR risks, or even enemies. While the consequences today are rarely as fatal, the speed with which alliances can shift and the brutality with which former intimates can be cut off is familiar in both eras. Finally, The survival of these letters allows us to compare the evolution of public perception over time. In Henry's day, his pursuit of and was polarizing, admired by some, condemned by others. Over the centuries, the letters have been reinterpreted as evidence of a tragic romance, as proof of Anne's political skill, as a cautionary tale about mixing love and power. Similarly, modern romantic communications, once leaked or published, are reinterpreted over time. What seems scandalous in the moment may later be romanticized. What appears noble may later be critiqued as manipulative. The lens through which we view such exchanges is constantly shifting. In the end, comparing Henry and Anne's correspondence to today's world reveals less about how much we've changed and more about how much we've stayed the same. The tools are different: parchment replaced by pixels, wax seals replaced by encryption keys, but the human impulses remain: to persuade, to perform, to secure affection, and to wield intimacy as a form of power. Whether in a candlelit Tudor chamber or a modern office lit by a laptop screen, the act of writing to someone you desire carries risks, rewards, and the possibility that your words will outlive you, to be read, debated, and interpreted by audiences you never imagined.